Hello and welcome to another interview with North East Animal Rights. My name is Anna Amelia and I'm delighted to have Father Simon here with me today. We are talking about Christianity and veganism because as a Christian vegan myself, I know that there's quite a lot of tensions between the two areas, and I'm just wanting to have a little bit of sort of guidance from Father Simon. I am doing an article on Christianity in general and veganism, and I have Reverend John Ryder and also Reverend Kate helping me with that as well. So I'm hoping that out of the three of us, out of three of those people being interviewed, and also myself, we can make some sense of the links between Christianity and veganism. Okay, so I'm going to go straight into the questions if that's okay with you.
Sure.
So I know obviously not only are you a Christian vicar, you also you follow the teachings of St. Francis, who lay people will know as the patron saint of animals. Now, I believe that St. Francis wasn't a vegan or a vegetarian even. Do you think that was due to the times, that if he were alive today, he would find it more easy to be a vegan?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. It's as a Franciscan, as somebody's trying to follow after Francis's example, it takes a lifetime to try and work out what exactly that example is, and what his life and his teachings mean in the 21st century, particularly in our part of the world. So yeah, it is difficult. Yeah, I mean, there's certainly records of Francis eating meat at some stage, but there are records of him going on long fasts and not eating meat at other stage. If you zoom back into my life, there are times when I've been an omnivore, times when I've been a vegetarian, and times when I've been a vegan. So yeah, it's hard to make sense exactly what his lifestyle was, but he certainly did eat meat at some stage.
Yeah.
Would he eat meat now in the 21st century West? It's hard to say. My guess is no, he wouldn't. And two of the biggest things I think are contemporary issues that weren't around for Francis in his time. One is climate change. You know, the massive impact that diet has on the environment wasn't really an issue that they were aware of in St. Francis's time. The other thing I think is animal suffering and factory farming. You know, we didn't have that intensity of farming in St. Francis's time that we have today. So two of the massive reasons why Christians might choose to be vegetarian or vegan now, climate change and animal suffering through intensive farming, weren't around in his time. So yeah, I think, you know, his emphasis on love, his appreciation for the animals, seeing all the animals as his brothers and sisters. I think very much if he was aware of contemporary issues, my best guess is that he would probably be a vegan today, but who knows?
Yeah, but we hope so. So one of the biggest conflicts I have being a Christian vegan is the fact that Christianity is based on peace and love, as is veganism. I mean, to me, veganism in its purest form is peace and love, but it doesn't seem to extend to animals in Christianity. In Genesis, it says that we have dominion over animals, but very shortly after in the same book, it says that it refers to us as having all the fruits and seeds available to eat, so essentially a vegan diet. What do you think happened between then, which is advocating a harm-free life, and the fall, where God said we could eat meat as long as they were killed humanely?
Yeah, again, lots of great issues raised there. I mean, trying to make sense of the Bible is like trying to make sense of a library. There are lots of different books, with lots of different genres, lots of different perspectives, and trying to make sense of Genesis today is a massive task. And of course, there's going to be different Christians have different ideas about that. And with regard to, you know, do peace and love, Christian peace and love extends to animals? Well, some Christians are going to go, well, yes, but they're separate categories, because again, some people would read Genesis as saying humans are made in the image of God, but animals are not. And yet other Christians would say, actually, no, God is the ground of all being. God is being, and God is as present through and in any animals as he is through human animals as well. So there's going to be differences of opinion there about where that love and peace extends. So yeah, how do we make sense of the fall? You're absolutely right, again, that in the initial stories of creation, God is depicted as giving humanity a vegan diet. But again, how that applies, different Christians are going to have different interpretations. Some will see it as myth, some will see it as clear teaching. It's not an obvious interpretation. What I think is interesting is that when God says to Noah after the flood, that there is permission to eat animals under certain strict, as you say,
Yeah.
humane
Yeah.
ways. How do we make sense of that? I think I would liken it probably to the teaching on divorce as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, Jesus talks about Moses giving a law about divorce because of the hardness of human hearts.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, he's saying this is not ideal, but if you have to do it well, do it humanely.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not exactly what God intends. So I guess I see veganism in a similar sort of way. If you have to eat meat, do it humanely. But if it's possible to live without violence, then that's the best way to live.
Yeah, I think one of the things we constantly get, we as vegans, we constantly, well, it's vegans, Christian or otherwise, we say there's no way to kill an animal humanely who wants to live. So I know obviously a lot of religions have that they'll pray before they kill an animal, or they'll do some sort of blessing or something, or they'll thank God for the food on the table. And I know that when I was talking to Father Philip Bullock, he was saying that obviously the blood part of it, the blood sacrifice, is actually where they say the soul is. So if you don't have the blood in, it's just like a shell of an animal. So it's like the physical part of it, what you can eat. But again, it kind of like, for me, it comes back to the fact that these animals, they don't really want to die. I've seen so many of them. We sort of like don't differentiate between free range organic or factory farms. When we stand outside the slaughterhouses, we see the same animals going in absolutely terrified, no matter what their life has been up to that point. So it's kind of, it is a difficult one, kind of trying to explain that, that some Christians think it's okay to eat meat and they're killing the animals at the same time.
Yeah, I guess there's two things that come to mind there. First of all, I mean, I would agree with you that I think people like John Henry Newman and contemporary theologians like Andrew Lindsay would talk about animals having a similar sort of moral status to vulnerable children.
Yeah.
They're not able to give consent.
Yeah.
They are vulnerable and need protecting.
Yeah.
We talked about the word dominion in Genesis. So there's a lot of debate about what that means, but it's related to the word Lord.
Mm-hmm.
What example do Christians have as to how to be a Lord? Well, through the Lord God, and the Lord God is love and compassion. And just as we wouldn't want God to eat us, so if we have a dominion over vulnerable and weak and beings that are unable to give consent, surely we shouldn't eat and take advantage of them. So that's one line of thinking that I would agree with.
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, even if we are to say there is not a humane way to kill an animal, I think there are worse ways than other ways. And actually, I want to have compassion and understanding on people who are doing their best, but maybe don't have all the information they have. And I want to follow Jesus' teaching not to judge as well. So I don't want to point the finger and condemn. There are many. I'm sure most vegans have been on a journey in their life. And I started off eating meat. I moved to vegetarianism, was a vegetarian for a long time, and I moved into veganism. And I'm very pleased that I made that journey, but I don't want to point back and condemn myself earlier in my life. I think most people are doing the best they can with the resources they've got. So I want to help them have better resources to make better decisions.
I think they're very good points, actually. Particularly when you were saying about the dominion, about actually being able to look after, kind of like being a lord, as in like a ruling lord sort of thing. It's like a caretaker, like a caregiver sort of.
Stewardship is another way that it's translated.
But also, again, when you sort of saying about not judging other people, that's very, very true, because we, I don't know if you've heard of someone called Jay Wild. He was a dairy farmer, and he relinquished his 73 cows to Hillside Sanctuary. And I'm actually interviewing him next couple of weeks. And he was a dairy farmer. He's sort of like gone past all of us standing there outside of a slaughterhouse, and he was at a different journey. He was kind of like seeing or standing there and kind of making a connection. And he's not a youngster by any stretch of the imagination. So everybody's sort of a different points of it, And Joey Carbstrong also said that, you could be the person who talks to someone about veganism right at the start of the journey, or it could be that final part right at the end when it finally clicks and they
Yeah.
change.
Yeah.
So it's really, really important that you don't judge, that you give people the information and try
Yeah.
to help them along a little bit.
And who are we more likely to listen to? People who are, you know, friendly to us and are listening to us, and they're compassionate, or people who are pointing and judging? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So my limited understanding of the Bible, because I'm not, I mean, but Brian reads it, but I kind of like pick and choose a little bit. It's much, it's that it's a record of many men's writings, usually men. It's not going to be many women, over thousands of years. So it can be used for any gender people may have, and obviously it has been as well. But actually, the guiding force of Christianity and veganism is peace and love to all. So how can we better promote veganism in Christianity and our churches on a more basic level? How do we get churchgoers to understand that peace begins on their plate?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right that, you know, if I were to pick one central theme of Christianity, it is love. You know, Christianity teaches that God is love. Jesus is love in human flesh. And his ultimate sacrifice is an act of love, being prepared to give up his life for the sake of the whole cosmos. So absolutely, that is central to Christianity. So how do we help Christians see that love extends to animals as well? Well, first of all, I would want to say, teach about love, teach about a specifically Christian kind of love, this agape love, which is about giving up, you know, self-sacrificial love, doing things which may not be your preference for the sake of others, as we see in Jesus. I think what we've already talked about being compassionate and not judging and being friendly and, you know, seeing people on a journey, I think that's all really important. I think I would probably also start by saying, for the many Christians who would really want to see a difference between human animals and non-human animals, those who are made in the image of God and those who are not, well, let's talk about how veganism affects human animals. Well, actually, if we look at climate change, you know, the impact of the livestock sector on climate change is huge. If we don't stop the current trajectory, then that's going to have a huge effect on the poorest human beings on the planet. So actually, even if you think human beings are more important than non-human animals, being a vegan is going to help and be loving towards human animals. So that's a good place to start, I think. I think also, if you looking at animal suffering, and I think a lot of people who are omnivores are just not aware of how animals suffer in the livestock sector. And I think the more we can do to raise awareness in a compassionate and understanding way, I think that's really helpful. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it certainly does. I was kind of thinking about how our group approaches, obviously outreach. We are, our logo is for the animals, which is obviously first and foremost, but it's animals for the planet for us. So basically saying if you look after the animals, you don't have all the agricultural issues, the planet is better, which means it's also better for us as well. So everybody benefits just by the acts of kindness towards animals. But our approach is much more educational. We're not a shouty sort of confrontational graphic pictures, megaphone type protesty group. I was as much more trying to, you know, I mean, I know education is the longer, slower route, but I think it's the one which sticks probably better. And also you'll have more people kind of advocating for, if somebody kind of like converts to veganism because they've been educated in the facts, you know, they're more likely to try and educate other people as well. But I mean, that's not to say we don't get frustrated when we stand on a Saturday and you see stuff, people walking past from McDonald's and and Greg's and things, you know, but that's how we try to do it. I always say to them that our fundamental, our kind of aim, if you like, is about vegan peace, love and kindness to all. It's not just about, so if you have somebody walking past who's not particularly receptive to the message, you still try to be friendly and project kindness to them as well, because they could be having a bad day or other things going on with them, you know.
Well, I mean, if you think about how we became vegans, you know, I became a vegan kicking and screaming, to be honest. I loved the taste of meat. I loved the taste of dairy. I did not want to do it. But as a Christian, I was fundamentally committed to trying to live out a life of self-sacrificial love. And you know, the more reading I did, I was faced with these scientific studies, you know, livestock's long shadow and all, you know, all that sort of stuff. And
Yeah.
you think, well, I have a choice. Do I have my preference and put something in my mouth that I enjoy the taste of,
Mm,
or do I give up that preference for
mm,
the sake of other human beings and the other animals in the world?
mm.
I felt very convicted that this is what I needed to do.
Yeah.
Um, but you know, think about how we changed our minds, and
Yeah.
that's probably how other people are going to change their minds
Yeah.
as well.
Mhm. So, as a Franciscan who follows St. Francis' teachings, how do you start conversations about your veganism, your journey, and how do you advocate for animals on a practical and grassroots level? Kind of, you know, people who know you're vegan and kind of like want to play vegan bingo with you, or, you know, sort of, do you miss this? Do you miss that sort of thing?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just honest with people about where I'm at, you know, and I'm honest. You know, it's not because I don't like the taste of meat or the taste of dairy products. It's because I'm trying to do the right thing.
Yeah.
And I'm also open. You know, tell me if I'm wrong. You know, I'm very happy. Tell me if I'm wrong. That's okay. But as far as I read the science, this is what it seems to be saying about climate change and about animal suffering.
Mm,
Um, I mean, I think I think everything we said about the church applies to the Franciscan world as well.
mm,
Um, I think one thing that is particularly strikes me in the Franciscan world is, uh, you know, as Franciscans, we spend a lot of time in prayer and silence and
mm,
contemplation. And in my experience, when we do that, and all the sort of thoughts and emotions
mm,
have time to settle, we begin to notice something of the interconnectedness
mhm,
of everything.
mhm.
And you know, I see this in the life of St. Francis, and when he begins to talk about brother sun, sister moon, you
Yeah.
know, and all the animals as brothers and sisters, um, and that's been my experience of silence and contemplation as well, that you feel in your bones a sense of interconnection.
Yeah.
And if you see the presence of God in an animal, non-human animal, and in a human animal,
Mm,
you don't want them to suffer.
yeah.
You don't want to take advantage of them for your benefit
Mm,
because they are your brother and your sister.
yeah.
And so I think talking about my own experience of contemplative prayer and meditation, um, and being honest about where I'm at, I think has an influence on people. I hope it has an influence on people, but also an attitude of humility as well. You know, I'm really open. If I've got this wrong, if I've misunderstood it, please tell me.
Mhm,
Let's talk about it together.
mhm.
But this is how I see it at the moment.
Yeah. Mhm. Well, thank you very much for that. That's been absolutely fascinating. It's been really, really lovely to talk to you. So
Okay.
I want to say thank you very much on behalf of Northeast Animal Rights, and I'm going to sign off now. So this is Anna Amelia from Northeast Animal Rights talking to Father Simon about Christianity and veganism. Thank you very much for watching.